Welcome back to data extraction with Python from JSON files. In this lecture we will use Python to extract some data from our JSON files that we got from Instagram. So here you can see that we have a few files from different users and we want to extract the username, the number of posts, followers and followings. Each of the files in my folder contains some information about a user account from Instagram we got from this !__a equals 1 page, which displays all the user information as a JSON format. Since the JSON object notation JSON is basically a dictionary, we can just use Python and really easily select and extract the data from those JSON files. To start with, we want to get all the JSON files from the directory, and we use the same approach we've used before. So we get all the contents from our directory and then just filter for files that are named JSON. In order to create a file, our summary.csv file, we need to create a new file, and therefore we need to get a file descriptor, which we can get by using the open method of Python. This will create a new file in our system and return a file descriptor we can reuse to write to. The second parameter we pass to this method is going to describe how we want the file to be opened. R stands for read, W for write, and since we want to write to the file here, we will use W. The first row of our CSV file needs to be the header, which describes which values are written into the file. One thing we have to take into account is that we always have to add a \n to the end of our line in order to start a new line. Once we set up our basic summary.csv file, we can now go in and iterate through our objects. When reading files that don't need any external libraries, we can use the same approach as we use with the summary.csv file. Just instead of the W, we provided R to read the file instead of write it. So the next step we will do here after finishing our comments, as always, is we're going to open the current JSON file. This time we're going to use a different approach, which is called Context Manager. This with open statement defines an object that will be opened inside the scope below and automatically close when we exit this scope. The JSON parsing can throw some errors whenever there is a non-JSON file being parsed. So what we are going to do here is add a try statement and then use the JSON library to load this kind of JSON file we just opened and read the content from it. Once our JSON file is successfully loaded, we can then access its members like a simple dictionary in Python. So let's check back with the JSON file and see what we have to do. First we have to get the actual GraphQL content before we can extract things like the username and post. JSON files are the de facto standard used in web applications, so this is really handy to be able to automatically extract information from, for example, responses from web servers or websites. We have to repeat this process of going back to our JSON document to find the accessing properties over and over again now. So what we are going to do is we are going to get the username, the amount of posts, the amount of followers and followings. Navigating such JSON files is very tedious sometimes. One recommendation I can make is to get a JSON plugin for your Chrome browser, which will allow you to navigate your files more easily. We've now finished setting up the extraction path for all of our values, so let's do some basic printing here in order to make sure that we understand what we're doing and what our script is doing, and then also finish our try and catch block by using an except statement with the JSON decode error from the JSON library. We've looked at how to find the proper errors either by hovering over our methods or by looking up Google searches for this specific kind of error. Adding one last print statement and then also increasing our number of processed files by 1 in order to do some more logging in the end. So let's add a small annotation what we're going to do next and let's try out our script. And here we can see that it prints the usernames, the number of posts and all the information from the JSON files. Whenever we cat, so read the content of our summary.csv, we can see that there is no value in there yet. This is because we haven't written to that specific file yet. So let's add a read statement to our script in order to write the exact same information we just printed. So we will add the username, the posts, followers and followings. Re-executing our script, we can now see that the summary.csv has values in it. One mistake we did here was that we did not add the \n special character that will start a new line in our text file. So after adding that, let's re-execute our script and see our summary.csv file, and we can now see that all the values are in a separate line. This already finishes our script, and as you can see, handling JSON files is really not that hard. So let's go back and actually talk about what we did here again. We first imported a JSON library that will help us handle JSON files. We then iterated through all the files and opened each individual file and extracted or loaded the JSON content. The loaded JSON file could then be used as a simple Python dictionary in order to extract information. We've also handled the case that if someone imports a wrong JSON file. Taking one last look at the JSON file that we get from Instagram, we can see that there is a ton of more information. So maybe go ahead and try to get more information out of it and create a bigger CSV file.